Hello and welcome to Make a Difference, the show devoted to volunteers and volunteerism in Montgomery County. I'm your host, Joe Ayers. The state of our economy today has placed added demands on nonprofit organizations and government entities whose resources, in many cases, are already stretched thin. Meanwhile, the need for services remains greater than ever. Well, how can organizations and agencies meet their customers' needs and stay afloat themselves? One answer is the Volunteer Center's Pro Bono Consultant Program for organizations. Simply explained, it consists of volunteers with professional skills who offer consulting on short-term projects. Shortly, we're going to hear how you can get involved. But first, here are some other volunteer opportunities in the area. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Make a Difference. I'm your host, Joe Ayers. Our guests today are Michelle Birnbaum, Director of the Pro Bono Consultant Program, and Pam Saucy, a Pro Bono Consultant. Michelle, Pam, welcome to Make a Difference.
Thanks, Bonnie. Thank you.
Michelle, let's start with sort of an explanation. As I referred to in the opening, it's a very simple concept, the basis for the whole program. But let's talk about how it got started and what it does,
Sure.
how it operates.
So the program's been around for about 12 years now, and it's part of the larger Montgomery County Volunteer Center, which is all about matching up volunteers with organizations that need them. The specific program looks to match up people who want to use their professional skills that they've acquired over the years on volunteer projects that come from either nonprofits or government agencies here in the county. And the volunteers basically decide if they want to work on a project. So it is their choice. We get projects in from organizations that have a need, and they are usually in the areas of things that you would think of that are associated with consulting. So perhaps it's finance, budgeting, marketing, strategic planning, program management, program evaluation. If you can think of it associated with the word consulting, an organization could submit a project, they're short term, and they need a professional, and they can't afford to pay for it. And then an individual will come to us who has those skills. We interview them, we ask them what they've done in that area. Maybe they're a database person or a website designer or any of the other skills I mentioned. We think about what they can do, we think about the projects that we already have in the wings waiting, and then we try to match those people up with those projects. We show them what we have, and we ask if they're interested. If they're interested, we give them a chance to meet with the organization and talk about whether it's a good fit or not. And so there's an opportunity to have a conversation and make sure that they really want to do the project and it fits with their both skills and time availability.
Well, that was another question. I was just going to say, that was one of the best summaries I've ever heard. I think you just did the show so we can just sit and chat about other. Now, I do have, you mentioned time and time commitment, and I think I know the answer, but is there a specific time, and how do you deal with the time commitment? Does it vary?
It does vary because projects vary. So what we do is we basically ask the organization ahead of time, if they can, to try to pick things that are limited, time limited. Now that is of course defined by the project, but we ask them to scope that out a little bit when they submit their project request to us, and then definitely to scope it out at that initial meeting with the volunteer, because the volunteer has the right to say, I can't do that in the time you've requested, or I'm willing to do a piece of that, but I don't have that kind of time available. So it's definitely a conversation that they have to work out before anybody moves forward on anything. So we've got projects that can last 30 days or 60 days, maybe 90 days. Occasionally a project will go longer, but again, that's supposed to be a two-way conversation that continues over the scope of the project, so that everybody's happy and it's a win-win for both sides.
Sure, because that's the ultimate gauge of success.
That's the nature of volunteerism, right? You know, you're giving of your time as a volunteer, but the organization's also investing time in you.
Sure.
So you've got to be sure that if you start on a project, again, these are professionals that are giving their time, so there's a level of expectation on the part of the organization that you're going to give that time, and you're not just going to walk away in the middle of it either. So, you know, it has to be definitely a level of communication going on two ways.
Yeah, and then we're going to hear from Pam very shortly, who can speak frontline experience to that. But let me ask you something that I don't think we had talked about before. You mentioned we're talking about professionals with experience. And first of all, you think, well, this would be good for maybe somebody who's retired who wants to keep their hand in. But what kind of ages do you get response for volunteers? It's not necessarily something that a person with a lot of long-term experience could do. They could do it. But what do you find with people's, are there people still working, in other words, who find time to do this?
We get a variety of people. I mean, some of the people are between jobs. They've been maybe laid off, or they're maybe making a career change, and they need to fill some time and keep their resume fresh. We get people that are recently retired, or even have been retired a long time. I mean, I've had volunteers that are, you know, well up there in years, and we've had younger people. What we don't usually get is people who are really young, who have really no experience, because the organizations look to us at the Pro Bono program for people that have expertise, and they don't have to hold their hands and teach them how to do whatever it is they're hiring them to do, in quotes, hiring. So they tend to be a little bit more mature, but their story and where they are in their life cycle could be between jobs, working now but have time and just want to give something back to the community, or retired. And so it runs the gamut, and that's kind of what makes it interesting. I do a little bit of career counseling at times when I'm interviewing people, because they're trying to figure out what their next step is. That's part of the fun of it.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. And you never know how this might play out as well, because it's called a foot in the door sometimes, and people are making new contacts, and something may happen.
Some people have actually gone on and used that volunteer opportunity to find a job. No question about it, and it happens. It's not all the time, but it does happen.
Well, and I think that's something that I haven't heard recently, but when it first started to happen, is be sure to put this kind of experience on your resume.
Yes.
Because all of that counts nowadays.
Oh yes.
And Pam can speak to that as having had a former life as executive director with the Literacy Council.
Yes,
but
that's right.
Pam, how did you get started with the Pro Bono?
Well, I knew it existed because I had worked with the Volunteer Center a lot when I was at the Literacy Council.
Yes.
The Literacy Council has about 1,000 volunteers a year, and so I know that a lot of our volunteers were coming in through the Volunteer Center, and I knew about the Pro Bono consulting program. I'm ashamed to say I never availed myself of their services while I was an executive director, but I left my job at the end of 2010, and I want to say I'm one of the younger consultants that they have, but I needed to. I wanted to keep my hand in and do something. Once my situation stabilized, I started looking around and got in touch with the Pro Bono consultant program and sent in my application and went in and looked at the binder of projects, and we happened to find a really, really good match for me, a program evaluation project that I took on.
And it did, you were saying before, I don't know what your expectations were for length of time, but it lasted a fair amount of time, which you were able to give.
Right. It went on for about 10 months, and one of the reasons why my project took as long as it did is that it was an English language program for adults, similar to the kind of thing that I had been doing for 10 years. And I was going to be evaluating them against some established standards by the Teachers for English for Speakers of Other Languages, TESOL. And I had used those before in my job, and so I knew kind of different things I was going to have to cover. And one of the things I was going to have to do was observe their classes. They had like 6 class sites and 15 teachers, and just to be able to sit in on all those classes, I needed that was going to take some time, so that I wasn't and they only had classes twice a week, so I had to space it out so that I could see everybody. And then I developed a report for them at the end. It ended up being about a 28-page report that kind of gave them some recommendations, also told them what was great about their program, and also told them some places that they could improve.
So you left sort of a written legacy for them then.
Well, I hope so. I hope they find it useful. I mean, I tried to be realistic, and having been a program director myself, I kind of knew what kind of things were going to be out of the question. I mean, you can't go in there and propose things that doesn't help them, to give them something that they absolutely don't have the resources to use. So I tried to keep it on the level that they would find useful.
So part of volunteers' job would be to, at least from your standpoint, from your project, is to assess the reality of the situation with the organization and what they can, and
Right.
realizing what they can and can't do.
It helped
and
that
then
I was
tailor
familiar.
those.
I was familiar with the field, and I was familiar with their organization, and their client base, quite familiar to me. So that helped. I don't know that that's always going to be the case for a consultant, that they're going to be able to.
It might not be, but we
But-
do really try when we're matching up consultants to find a consultant that, if it, has both a passion for the organization or their mission or their work in such a way that they probably bring something from their background to it.
Sure, yeah.
And so I think that's partly why it worked with you, but I think most of the matches, the ones that work the best, that's why they work the best. So we're always trying to match both the skills and the interest to make that work so well.
Right,
And
we
I
have
think
so
that's
many
why it
different
worked.
nonprofits in the county. It's hard to
Right.
imagine that
It-
there wouldn't be lots
there's
of
a
match
wealth.
opportunities.
Yes.
Well, let's give some contact information now that we've maybe whetted appetites for volunteers, and then we'll want to talk for a minute in the time we have left about organizations. But give us a phone number people can call, and then an email address or the website.
Sure. So the direct number to the pro bono program is 240-777-2605. You can learn more about the pro bono program itself at our main website, which is www.montgomeryserves.org. And you can also learn about all kinds of other volunteer opportunities on that online database that we keep on that website. So that's a great place to look up for volunteering in general. And there are some high-level consultant sounding projects that you can find there as well. You don't have to just come through the pro bono program. So definitely a great place to look. But if you want to do something more specific, you come through our program, we interview you. If you're an organization out there or you're affiliated with an organization out there and you're watching our program today, please, please, please think about submitting a project to us. We're always looking for great projects because we've got great people who want to volunteer. And we want to match you up. That's what we do. We're matchmakers. That's what
Well,
we do.
and you also then, when somebody does have maybe a need, or they think, definitely get in touch with you, because then you will determine maybe how they can move forward then.
Right,
and
we can
find
definitely
something.
help figure out the best way to try to find them the help that they need. I mean, that's what the Volunteer Center is all about, not just our program, So there's definitely a lot of resources within the organization to help the nonprofits and the county offices
Sure.
here in Montgomery County. I mean, that's our target population,
Sure.
of course.
And Pam, what personally have you gotten out of this experience as a pro bono consultant?
Well, I mean, I got to use the skills I developed over 10 years of being a director, and also made me feel like I was being useful. It's hard to go from a leadership position to not working, and that's difficult. So it makes me feel good that I'm still active, keep my hand in a little bit.
And she liked it enough, she's asked for another
Yes,
project.
I have.
So it's working because she
That's
wants to
right.
do more.
Yes.
Well, and I think that's probably a good thing and a good reminder that once you get one finished,
You can take on another.
There's another.
And you're right about it's going to go on the resume, so because
Remember that.
as I'm looking for a new spot.
Okay. I'd like to thank you both, Michelle, Pam, for being with
Bonnie.
us. The time has flown by, and you've given us a lot to think about and a lot of good information about the pro bono consultant program. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having us.
You just heard about the benefits of volunteering with the pro bono consultant program from Michelle Birnbaum and Pam Saucy. To become a pro bono consultant or to volunteer with other local organizations or programs, call the Volunteer Center at 240-777-2600 or visit their website at www.montgomeryserves.org. And remember, as a volunteer, you can make a difference.